Folks, welcome back to another episode of the MPH podcast. Today we have Cheyenne Sewell. Cheyenne actually is a part of the program here at GPH, which is very niche, I would say. It's called Community Health, Science, and Practice. Cheyenne graduated last year in 2025. We're filming in 2026 and has taken this specialization and gone into the world here at NYU Langone at the Bellevue Center right now. Beyond that, Cheyenne has the specialization in this, but while in school, worked full-time, part-time, did multiple jobs, and did so much work throughout her entire journey. And we're going to get to learn about her story, about community health and the program over here. And Cheyenne, welcome to the GPH podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here. I'm so excited.
Lovely to have you. Yeah, I mean, you have such great energy, by the way. I bet the cameras already feel it right now.
Thank you.
I have to ask, there was this... Can you explain community health to me? What on earth is this thing? How does someone describe it? What is community health? Health is community. We're a community.
Yes. So when I think of community health, I think I really draw my mind on local population, what makes up their community. You know, you look at their resources, their assets, their history, their culture, local initiatives, the environment that they're situated on, everything that makes them that community and what impacts their overall health outcome. The real goal of working in community health is bettering one's overall health outcome and utilizing whatever resources they have there and working one-on-one and more interpersonally with the people in that community in solving or coming up with solutions for that health issue. And so it's very interpersonal. I feel like for me, it's very narrative-driven, very qualitative, data-heavy, because you're just focusing on making those connections and working with the local population and coming up with whatever solutions that is towards their public health issue.
Let's simplify this. So give me a basic day in community health. So what would a day look like? Today we have...
One day you could be conducting a literature review, coming through like background research and, investigating the public health issue. That could be there not being enough green spaces to like absorb rainwater, which may cause flooding issues, going down the line. The next day, you could be meeting with a stakeholder, which could be like a local churchgoer, and interview them and get to know them and talk about the public health issue to gain their experience from that. It's very interpersonal, like one-on-one work.
Seems like every day is quite different, but
it's very different. You work with really interesting people. They all have a story, and it's important that you communicate their story, their health issues, their experiences in your work, especially when you're trying to you could be gaining more funding or like more spaces or materials for a given health solution. And so you want to be very much engaged and more involved with the people you're working with day to day.
One would think that the world of public health is data, computers, behind the scenes. You have done something very different, which has been people skills oriented.
Yes.
Now I've heard about I've had podcasts with people that have done drives and have to ask questions, and there's a lot of interviewing that takes place. How does your world involve people skills?
People skills are used very heavily. Yes, we rely on data and reports and policies, but again, like we still need that narrative, that qualitative research to create that whole encompassing story. And so when you're trying to relate your findings, like for example, if you are working in STATA or R or in a more quantitative lab-heavy daily work, you still have to be able to relate your findings to your audience. Whether you're working with stakeholders who deal more with the money aspect or the financial aspect, or working with the local schools and trying to get programs implemented, you still have to be able to relate to them and communicate and connect with them whenever trying to get your point across. Even though data is needed to show support in how our solutions would work, how useful a program may be, it's just so important to have the basis, that communications basis between the two parties. And so for us, at the very beginning of my 2 years at NYU, we focused on establishing rapport with our community members And that could just be making small talk. You know, you may notice that they have a child in a school that your child goes to, or you may notice that they love reading this type of book. So just starting off with small talk first and, you know, introducing yourself and just like learning about what their daily experiences are like and, you know, kind of navigating to the health issue from there. And so, yeah, you just learn to like connect with them and make rapport with them. And it's just really important to make those connections with people that you're working with. Otherwise, they won't hear you. And then a solution won't be created from there.
How would you do this?
Yeah.
Let's hear a class or like some tips on rapport with people in the community health setting. Like you show up to a situation, how can someone start building that muscle for themselves in the public health program?
I would say you never want to just go into a room and just like demand anything or like suddenly start throwing out stats and percentages of like what and how this would work. You kind of just like enter a space. I always like to observe where I am, see who's in the room. You know, do you have someone from the church there, or do you have like a parent, academics, journalists, just different stakeholders in the space? Listen to their conversation, see like where they're at, and then just like kind of like slide in and like introduce yourself and just make light talk first, I would say, and kind of work your way up to what you're trying to get them to do. And always think of both sides. Don't just go into a space and trying to get your agenda across. It's very important to make sure that both parties are heard. And make sure that both are getting what they would like out of the situation.
Can you tell me about the experience in Dr. Moon Howard's class? Tell us all about that.
Yeah, I remember she was my faculty mentor.
Okay.
And you know, faculty mentors at GPH, they're the ones who guide you throughout your whole experience at NYU. They're the ones who help you kind of navigate your career journey. So that's what I focus on with Dr. Moon Howard. So I met her my first year of grad school before taking her class. And so at that point, we had already established our relationship, our communication. And so I was just very excited about taking her class. It was the Assessing Community Health Needs class. It was for second year grad students at GPH. And yeah, for me, it was a full circle moment. I had already taken community-based health interventions and program planning evaluation. So this class was the last step I felt like I needed to kind of make my way into the world after graduation. And yeah, her class was a lecture-based class. I remember her going through the syllabus, and she had asked us, we were given a semester, like an end of semester project. And she had asked us, you know, we can either do a research paper, like standard, you know, research working teams write about it, or we could work with a local coalition and help them collect observational data and go door to door and just help create a community profile for each neighborhood, like in person, like doing actual field work. I remember looking around the space and I'm like, people were just like looking around, like seeing like who wouldn't want to do that opportunity. It was the first time I've ever like gone out into the field for my class and worked with an actual community-based organization that's like where I live, dealing with in real time a public health issue, which at the time was an ongoing flooding issue in Southeast Queens. And so I remember like we all raised our hands, like in unison, like of course we'll take the opportunity. Like it's our first time doing field work, working with a coalition, like who wouldn't want to do that? And so we worked with the Southeast Queens Residential Environmental Justice Coalition, also known as SQREJC. And it took a few weeks for us to kind of come up with a plan of what they really needed us to do. And we also had to abide by our syllabus to make sure that we were, you know, still learning what we were like required to like in the course. And we were split off into teams. We were in teams of 6. And we had to do like several things. We had to do a literature review, conduct a background research on the public health issue, which was an ongoing flooding issue. We had to do stakeholder interviews at some point. We had to geographically map our neighborhoods and figure out where the vulnerable points were and where were like the resources and assets like restaurants, churches, schools, things like that. And we had to like go out into the field and collect observational data, and at the end, of course, provide at-home surveys to local community members at their homes. So it was a lot, but it was a wonderful opportunity. We went out on over the course of 3 weekends to collect data. And I don't know if you had like a follow-up question, but I can keep going.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In regards to the geographic map, my friend had the idea of using Google Maps actually to pinpoint all of the local eateries and schools and things like that. And so when we got there, we took a weekend off. We went on a Saturday. We actually went to Nettie's restaurant, I highly recommend, in Southeast Queens. It's run by a man named Danny. And we actually got to speak to him first regarding the flooding issue and kind of get his experience, his opinions on it, and like what's been going on and any previous solutions that were installed beforehand that didn't necessarily work out before. And so it was really great. We got to see him kind of interact with his customers, people who go there daily. There was, brunch parties happening, and we just saw like how many people kind of grasp onto his restaurant as a community staple, essentially. And so we definitely noted him down for like a future stakeholder interview. And I guess that would be an example of how to like establish rapport. Like we ate there, we kind of made small talk and got to know him and kind of told him like, we're new to the neighborhood. We're just trying to get observational data on the ongoing flooding issue. Like, do you have any opinions or interest in that? And he kind of provided us the gist of his story with that. But I highly recommend, go to Nettie's restaurant, guys. After that, we kind of like walked around the neighborhood for a bit, took notes. We noted, which houses had like stains and damage from previous flooding or storms experiences. We've also noted, what were the transportation options like? Do they have buses or subways? Or do they have to mostly drive around in the area? Queens is a heavy residential area. There aren't enough subway stops. You have to drive around or take the bus to get to many places. We noted the churches, the schools, things like that. We even noted on the signage, sometimes they'll have more than one language. They'll have it in Spanish, English, and I think Bengali. So we noted that down and we took it back to our professor and kind of like gave her a notes of everything. From there, we were tasked to conduct stakeholder interviews. And my group had the idea of basically categorizing everyone that we were working with. We wanted to hear from journalists, from academics, from community members who were like churchgoers or, restaurant owners like Danny, as well as any local like councilman or woman who can just speak on like supporting their community. And so I was actually tasked with creating interview questions in the interview guide. I have qualitative research background from my anthropology major, and I was able to create an interview guide based on each category. So I wrote a specific interview guide for those in a public official title. And I wrote one for a journalist or community organizer. And for example, like these questions could be something like, how would you support your small businesses in a time of crisis? What did the emergency procedures look like for those living closest to the ongoing flooding issue? Just things like that. And after that, they were transcribed. And we had used that data collected for our final report. And we found that when we went out, door to door, everything was supported by like each interviewee's comments and data collected. And
what made you go door to door?
They wanted to get more data. They wanted to reach different number of neighborhoods within the Southeast Queens region. But they didn't have enough people to do it at first. So that's why we were recruited to do the door-to-door surveys. And so we had to choose, I believe, 2 weekends to go. We took a bus from NYU GPH and we drove all the way to Queens. And it was Dr. Moon Howard, us students, and Dr. Abrams, I believe, who went with us. And they had already developed the questions for us. They just needed our help to distribute them. And they were just based on like, asking for their experiences and things like that. So we took a bus, we got there. We were each tasked like a zone to visit in terms of like the number of houses we went to. I went with a small group of maybe 5 students and 1 member from the coalition. which was really cool. They got to talk about their own experience with the flooding issue, and just share like what they've learned and how long they've lived there for and their connection with their community. There was just such pride when we were there, and you'll see it like even if you don't talk to anyone, you can just see it in like how they take care of their like shared and personal property, like their homes. Everything just looks so well taken care of, and I don't know, I feel like there was a lot of resilience like going into the neighborhood, because they faced flooding issues in the past like constantly, and so still seeing how things were still intact and still beautiful, I feel like resembled resilience then. But we did the surveys. We had them on our phones like in a QR code way. We had them on paper, and we took a car, and then once we got to a certain street, we would get out and like just walk door to door. And we would knock and ring the doorbell. Some of the homes did have the ring systems on there. And in case they didn't answer the door, I came up with the idea to record the message on the ring. The rings will automatically record anything that takes place in front of the house, whether people are walking by or walking their dog or things like that. So I decided to kind of have a little message, just like introduce me. I was like, hi, I'm Cheyenne. I'm from NYU. We're doing home surveys. Can you please take our survey so that we can get more info on the ongoing flooding issue? It's anonymous. You can take it at a later time. You can take it on paper and mail it to us, or take it on your phone. Like just a really simple, like 30-second message. And then we just kept on going from there. We would track everything on like a shared Excel sheet. All we had on us were our phones and our pens and paper just to like track everything. And I remember, I think we reached about like 300 homes over the course of 2 weekends. And there weren't a lot of students. There were, I would say like maybe each weekend there may have been, I would say 15 students max. And, students wouldn't come every single time. We would rotate. I went both weekends, just for the sake of the experience. Highly recommend. But there were only 15 students, and maybe, I would say 6 coalition members that went with, like, one coalition member that went with each group of students, plus Dr. Moon Howard and Dr. Abrams. And so, I don't know. It was just such a wonderful experience. It was, also, this was in November. It was cold. It was rainy. And we were out there like in our hats and gloves, and we were just, doing the field work. But at the time we didn't really think too much of that. It was just kind of like, we gotta do what we gotta do. And this was a real health issue that they needed our help with. And yeah, we kind of like just trudged on, I guess. There
was an absolute yes feeling that you had in the beginning when you were asked. One would get scared doing this, what you did. Where does that passion come from inside that says yes instantly when it happens?
We were so excited. I mean, I guess part of it because we were still in school, and it's hard, especially when you're still in school and you don't have much experience. You have to take that opportunity, and I feel like, yes, it was so new, but there was also a group of us going, and so I felt like I went into the experience with familiarity and more confidence because I was in a group. It wasn't like I was tackling this experience alone. But even so, like, even if you're relatively new to the public health field, which I was at the time, it's like, I would say, do your research, ask the questions, ask for advice, look for people who have done similar experiences before, and try to apply what they've learned to your experience without it overcoming it. Yeah, I felt like for me, there was just no room for fear, in my opinion.
I mean, even knocking on someone's door, a stranger, and going and how does one do that? Like that's the first time I've heard it from someone on the podcast that I'm going door to door, I'm getting information. People would be rather reticent or hesitant to do something like that. What made you have the courage to go knock on a stranger's door and say hi?
Yeah, I mean, part of it, we were with a coalition member, and so I think that was a key piece. We had someone who was relatively from the area, and so if things ever got out of hand, they could step in for us. But we kind of made a strategy before, and kind of just keeping it simple, keeping it neat, and just not delaying our time there at the door. We would always kind of be friendly, and I always wore my NYU sweatshirt like you have on, actually, a purple NYU sweatshirt. And so, yeah, I kind of went in with like a smile, like a warm energy. And I'll be like, good morning, like, how are you? Like, my name is Cheyenne. I'm from NYU Public Health School. And we're here doing a survey just to get more info on the health issue. Is there any way you can help us with this? And if they declined, we'll just hand them the door note. So that way they can just take it later if they ever change their mind. But yeah, I kind of just approach things with an open mind. And if I needed help, I could always like ask my friends to come with me.
Speaking of help, it's almost like NYU has been given you this fearlessness,
yes,
in a way where you feel like safety, that I can go try these things and I can always go back to a space that I'm comfortable with.
100%.
You just came here from work as well,
Yeah.
so I'm curious to know, like, how did NYU support you to get your job, where you're going? How has NYU been part of that journey for you?
In terms of it being part of my journey, I would say NYU does a really great job in creating a space for students to meet with different companies and different organizations, and just setting the tone for like how you can approach the job market, giving you networking opportunities. I didn't exactly get my job through NYU, but I do believe that NYU gave me the platform to go out and pursue the career.
What has it been like building your network through the school?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I would say they'll give me the platform, but I think as a student, I still had to go the extra mile to kind of extend that, not lifeline, but that communication between me and the company, or between me and an employer. And I use LinkedIn heavily. I would always attend networking events with NYU, whether that was like career hubs. I would go and meet with my faculty mentor, Dr. Moon Howard, for like advice. I would always be seeking out like connections, like, hey, can you connect me with this person? Do you know anyone who's hiring or who's looking for an intern or a volunteer even? And I feel like I always took whatever opportunity I could get. So even if it wasn't a job, I would try to look for volunteer opportunities in the field just to keep me working, just to keep me active in the public health field, or something similar to it. And so I feel like NYU definitely set the stage for me in going out and pursuing my career.
I like how it gave you the space to experience, and it's given you the space to go explore, that you felt confident doing this on your own later on, and now you're back just a year later to talk to us about it. There's something that I didn't address, that I addressed in your intro, that you were working while in school as well, and you were doing all of this.
Yeah.
And that takes, school alone is a lot of work. And doing classes, a lot of work, homework, balancing a social life, balancing your professional life.
Yes.
What can you tell the students that are thinking of coming in about balance?
Yeah. Something I feel like I've just learned this, honestly, is, in terms of balancing your personal life and work and school, it took me a long time to learn this, but you work at work, leave work at your job. And when it's time for academics, you focus on your academics. I feel like for me, I kind of made a personalized schedule. So I would work a few hours on like studying in the library or studying with friends or working on a project. And then when it was time for me to like buckle down at my job, I would just focus on those few hours at my job. I worked 2 part-time jobs. I worked at NYU Tandon, I believe 20 hours a week. And then I was a full-time student for public health at GPH, and I worked about 10 to 15 hours as an intern for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And that was both in person and virtually. So, and I felt like a good strategy for me was that I was looking for an on-campus job, because I knew that if you worked on campus, the likelihood of you being able to get the hours that you need/want would be easier. I feel like on-campus jobs, especially for working with a faculty member or an administrative job at NYU, they understand that, you're a student, you have your classes and your homework, not to count for extracurricular activities. That's something you have to, build aside from your work and school schedule. But I made sure to communicate that with my supervisors early on, and to build that relationship so that they know they can count on me, like when I'm at work, and I could, go to class without feeling like I'm not doing enough at my job. And that was just really important to me. It is doable. I will say it's doable. It's a lot. I feel like students just have to be strategic about it. And just communicate and set up your time the way you need it to be set for your studying and your school and work.
This might be so reassuring for someone that is on that path, that it is difficult and possible, and it's about once it's prioritized and organized and intentional.
Yes, very much so. Intention is key. Communication is key. It's doable.
About communication, you would just communicate your needs to the respective. So at school, you communicated that you have a job. At work, you communicated that you're at school.
Exactly.
So people are aware holistically.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like your classmates are understanding. I do recommend students forming study groups together. Those are key, especially at GPH. And I'm still friends to this day with my classmates who I graduated with at GPH. I feel like it makes it easier and it makes it more fun. I feel like, studying at GPH, and they get it. They're all working, we're all working and volunteering and interning. And so it's great to be able to relate that with someone as well.
How lovely. I mean, you're a force of nature in this world. Someone so daring, and you feel, I'm almost sensing that you feel very comfortable in what you do and you're certain of it. How would you, if you would leave someone with that, how do you start feeling certain about yourself in the public health space? And it's a very uncertain environment in general. And how can you go ahead with that stride?
I would say just be very intentional. If you develop a passion for a research topic or a program or a field, I would say be intentional, research about it, talk to people who is in that field or in that program or job, make as many connections as you can, and so that way, when you're ready, you have all the tools, you just have to take that step forward and, go for it. I feel like I'm a very motivated person, and so when I have my heart set on something, I literally just go for it. I feel like failing is part of the learning process. I don't want students or faculty to be hindered by that. And I feel like that's kind of part of the journey. You can fail and just try again in a different way, try a different approach. Keep working at it, keep experiencing things, and just be open-minded too.
Well, it takes a lot of courage to even experience that. It's clearly coming from a lot of experience. So thanks for sharing that. And what's next for you in your public health journey?
I'm currently working on getting my certification in being a postpartum doula. Oh, wow. Yes, I'm very interested in maternal health, women's health, and so that's my next step. I'm doing it through DONA International. I'm hoping to be a part of the solution in bringing down or decreasing the maternal mortality rates for Black and Latinx women, Latino women. And so, that's one of the things. And I'm also working to volunteer at NYU Langone in their maternal health unit with the mother and baby unit.
Well, wish you the best, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with CHSP.
Of course.
It sounds like such a fascinating program, which has created so much rich character inside of you.
Yes, I've loved it. I miss it. It was the best of times. I loved it.
And it's unlocked so many more amazing times going down the line for you.
Definitely.
Amazing. Well, Cheyenne, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Everybody, that's Cheyenne. You can do it. You can do part-time, full-time work, prioritize, be intentional, and a program like CHSP might attract someone like you, which has a lot of in-person work, speaking, intentionality, and there's something for everyone because public health is everywhere, and Cheyenne has illustrated that. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.